I think the calling that I have is I help restaurants to understand that they shouldn't be afraid, and technology can actually enhance the experiences that they have. And every company that I've worked at, that is the thread. The world would be surprised about how many people would be willing to share things about themselves to restaurants so that they could be served better. I wish that every person walking into a restaurant, the tech that's being used could identify that person and identify those things. It would just make for such a better experience for people.
My guest today is Brandon Barton, CEO of Byte, and one of the rare voices in restaurant technology who can speak both with technical precision, but also have emotional empathy. Brandon started as a 14-year-old busboy in Brooklyn. He went on to run dining rooms at fine dining institutions, work alongside Danny Meyer, and become a wine-obsessed general manager who almost walked away from it all until a chance meeting led him to Averro, then Resi, and eventually to Byte, where the company's now scaling across some of the most recognizable brands in food service as one of the leading providers of kiosks. In this conversation, we talk about what it means to preserve hospitality in a world increasingly shaped by machines, why kiosks aren't the death of service, but a new medium for it. We explore what e-commerce can teach us about guest psychology, why the future of ordering is deeply personal, and how AI might one day know not just what we want, but why we want it. This is a conversation about restaurants, identity, and the quiet power of well-placed technology with someone who hasn't just observed the shift, but has helped create it. But before we dive in, as always, a special thanks to our sponsor, ClearCOGS. ClearCOGS is a leading provider of demand forecasting software in the restaurant industry, because ultimately the path to greater profits in restaurants is always clearer when you know what's ahead. And if you're liking this conversation, please give us a 5-star review, hit that like and subscribe button. Without further ado, I give you my interview with Brandon Barton. Brandon, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
My question's this. Like, I got an iPhone, right? You know, it's a piece of hardware, but like really, Apple sells me this curated experience with every application that's on my iPhone. When I think about kiosks, which is your business, like, should I think about it as a hardware solution, or is it, you know, Apple that's selling me this curated guest experience, that knowledge of how do you do orders correctly at a kiosk?
That's a great question. Look, and we promise this is not going to be a kiosk podcast, let me tell you, but we'll stay.
It might be, you know, we're just getting, who knows?
We'll give the people what they want. Kiosks, in this sense, like, I think the best way to describe this is e-commerce on a touchscreen. Okay. And so we are experts at this point, at this very niche part of e-commerce, which is ordering live and on a touchscreen. Now you'd say, oh, I have a touchscreen in my pocket. Sure you do, but that's 3.5 inches and you use your thumbs to make the gestures. And on a 21, 22 inch touchscreen, you're using your pointer finger. And you're going to make a lot of different decisions if you knew somebody was standing in front of something versus somebody was hitting with their thumbs. And so we are a software company and partner with some of the best hardware companies in the space to make sure that guests that go into restaurants can have as hospitable or sometimes even more hospitable of an experience than they have in the past through a kiosk. And how does that happen? There's a lot of different things that go into it, but I think it starts to break down the barriers when you just say to yourself, oh, it's like me ordering something on a website or on an app, but now I'm doing it with these pointer fingers of mine. And so it's just a different ordering medium, right?
Well, so that's kind of the question. You know, who's defining that experience? Is it you, or is the restaurant brand come to you and say, this is what we want, make it available? Yeah,
look, I mean, and you know, no vertical SaaS business could be, there's like two versions of this. One is you're a truly custom company, right? You're a custom dev shop and somebody comes to you with an idea and you create that idea. Byte is not a custom dev shop, but yet we do customize our product often. The same way that you can have, 100 different versions of a Squarespace website or a Shopify website, or, Byte has, what seemingly feels to many customers as unlimited customizations, but there are things that we also don't break. Like, we won't put a pop-up after every single item that you've put in your cart to say, hey, you put a burger in, do you want to make it a meal? Or you put a drink in, do you want to make it extra large? I know you ordered the medium. We won't do that because it's antithetical to the beauty of the guest experience, right? So there are features that we don't build, even if somebody said, hey, this is exactly how I want my experience. It's probably not the right fit for us, but we do customize quite a bit.
I guess that kind of goes back to the Apple thing. So like, I can build an app on the App Store, but they're going to predefine, this is how this button is going to look, and this is how it needs to interact with our ecosystem. I assume for you guys, it's like, hey, we've mastered the pop-up for upselling, and this is where it goes, and this is how it looks, and this is how it goes into the workflow. You're almost selling that experience and intelligence around it.
Yeah,
as
that's fair. I mean, in the Apple example, though, Byte would be the platform and the developers, and as opposed to saying you can develop whatever you want and there's these restrictions. Our engineering team is putting the menu together, putting the experience together. And if a restaurant came to us and said, we want to just do straight down the middle what you think is best, a couple weeks later, they can have an incredible kiosk experience for their guests up and running without input,
So it's a weird industry that we are in, that something like kiosks is a controversial subject, but it feels like it's controversial. It's like a litmus test. Is your brand going to use kiosks or not? Like, do kiosks work? Who do they work for? Like, what is kiosks in restaurants today?
Yeah, they work. They work for nearly everybody. The concept is pretty simple, in my opinion. There are certain parts of an ordering experience that you don't need help with. And guests are now at the point in just our social construct in which a large majority of them don't want help, or might even find like offense in that help. Think about, I'll give you like first of all, there's obviously like, let's say the younger generation who talks to people less and doesn't want to have that social interaction, and they want to keep their AirPods in and just go straight over to something and help themselves. That's perfect. That makes a lot of sense. If you think about like 30 years ago, I'm sure there were gas station attendants at every single gas station across the country. I'm sure you spent time in Jersey.
New Jersey. Yeah, let's go. They're still pumping my gas.
Right. But if you were in another state and somebody came over and said, I'll pump your gas, it's like, I'm good. Like, I know how to do this. It's fine. But yet in a restaurant, it's this idea of ordering what you want it can be pressure filled. It can be like, there could be some choice paralysis and all these other things. And like, isn't it better to go through that experience alone? I remember at one point I wanted to do a commercial where we would like, have a bit of fun with the Chipotle line where, you walk up and they're like, bowl or burrito. And it's like black or pinto bean. It's like somebody yelling at you. Like, I don't know which ones are the pinto bean. Like, we
used to do it Jimmy John's. Like, literally they'd order and like, we'd make the sandwich and I'd give it to them at the register and they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say no tomatoes, but like, we were so quick to make it that like, it was already done.
Yeah.
It's pressure filled.
And so look, you could take the pressure off. There's people who don't want to talk to other people. There was another fun use case that I was thinking of the other day. I was in a Mexican restaurant, and as I was going down the line, I said, I'd love queso. And they said, 1 ounce, 2 ounce, or 4 ounces. Okay. 2 questions popped in my mind. Number one, I don't want to say, 2 ideas. One, I don't want to say out loud to everybody that I want 4 ounces of queso. Okay. But I do want 4 ounces of queso. But then the second question was, if 4 ounces of queso is $6, I don't want it. If it's an appropriate $3.50 or something, I'm in. Like, I'm not going to just spend wild. And neither of those, like, I can't ask that second question. I would look like a social weirdo being like, how much is the 4 ounce versus the 2 ounce queso? But yet on a kiosk, that's all there for you. Like, the whole thing's there. So there's just so many of these use cases and just like guest types that come in and into a restaurant and might prefer to do this themselves. By the way, in almost every single case, Byte is never talking to a restaurant and saying, you should absolutely do 100% kiosk, get rid of all of your other ordering channels. We're saying it's an additional ordering channel. And the same person on a Monday might go in and order off a kiosk. And then maybe on a Friday, for whatever reason, there's no line. Maybe they have a group of people with them and they want to order together with a person. They go up to a cashier, and that's great and that's beautiful. It's just an option.
This kind of dovetails nicely into the industry as a whole. Everything's just so confusing today. There's so many different applications. You're in the order taking business. Now all of a sudden I've got online ordering. I've got my POS. I've got my kiosk, right? Like all from different vendors. Is there a differentiation there? Should they all be different vendors, or does Toast ultimately have a kiosk and every POS company has a kiosk? Why is it its own individual thing? And should it be?
It's a good question. I mean, look, the point of sale companies are really good at certain things. And if you look historically, point of sale companies, have been the centerpiece of the restaurant's technology stack in the restaurant. And then there have been a ton of companies who have built, other businesses around that connect to the point of sale. Look at something like scheduling. Now, does certain point of sale companies have their own scheduling products? Sure, they do. Does it have as much large of a feature set or as robust of a feature set as some of the other players that are the independents that integrate with these point of sale systems? No, they don't. And when restaurants get to a certain size, they need a robust solution that's going to stand on its own 2 feet, that's going to lead the thinking. That's the case for online ordering, right? You very rarely will see a non-enterprise brand or a non-mid-market brand, or a mid-market or enterprise brand, I should say, utilizing a point of sales online ordering, because there's just the point of sales job is to kind of give you like, here's an option that would be the low cost option, because what we really focus on is making sure that that box that all the orders go through works and it gets into the kitchen and so forth. There's a reason that Mercedes doesn't make airplanes and boats and maybe they do in the one-off, but like the point is like, you can't do all of these things at once. It's there's a very interesting conversation that I have with friends in the business about which companies are features and which companies are companies, right? I think that comes up a lot when you deal with like the pre-Series A world, and I think the idea of kiosk ordering is full on its own category, and I'll justify it in one specific way. In the majority of the restaurants that we work with, they're doing over 35-40% of their in-store orders on the kiosk. Okay. Lots and lots of orders. Maybe one out of every two people are basically going to a kiosk in store.
Also, it's your first touch point with the customer. It defines the experience. Sure.
Now, if you were to say online ordering, would there be any debate in online ordering being its own category? No, right? Like you would never say like, DoorDash should just be in the Toast, right? No, that's not going to be the case for 1,000 market reasons. Okay. Online ordering in general, order ahead, I think is still sub 20%. 20% of orders are online ordering. How many, what is the total amount of orders in a store? It is still 60%. It's probably 20%, somewhere around, 15, 17% online. Maybe something like 25 to 30% of orders are like in a drive-through, and then the rest are in your store for the whole industry. So there's a huge chunk. So digitizing this in-store column, that's a category. That's not.
Yeah, and nobody's arguing that voice AI in the drive-through is not its own category, and yet you're processing more of those guest interactions.
Like I think if a Toast came along and bought a voice AI company to say that just like they bought a drive-through company years ago, I think that would make sense for them, but I don't think that invalidates the idea that that's a category itself. They're just going into different business lines.
All right, so I've been playing with this idea. It's still rough, but I'm curious to get your take. I don't know whether to be cynical or optimistic. Like you look at restaurants over the last 30 years and you say, okay, what technological developments have really happened in this industry? We came up with online ordering. There's a cloud POS, right? Kiosks. This is stuff. I mean, this is the pumping gas, right? Like, these are like really basic innovations. And then on the flip side of it, you brought up the whole, is this a feature or is this, an actual like business vertical? Yeah, a company. I sit here and also think it feels like we're going through a technology renaissance in the industry. And you've had this explosion of SaaS companies over the last 6 years, maybe 8 years that the industry's never seen before. Now it's technology overload and how do we consolidate the stack? But, it also feels like we're going through a renaissance of optionality for restaurants. Like, should I be cynical or optimistic that, the industry's now all of a sudden getting a ton of technology, or it's going to go the way of the last 30 years and, be slow?
I think you could have optimism and also say that this industry is going to be slow. I have now been in this world for over 25 years, and it's not it's not an industry that adopts technology quickly. Okay. It typically lags behind other industries and how fast the new stuff is adopted. I think that's changing a little bit. I think like for the advent of robots, it's kind of interesting, right? Like I interacted with my first Coco on the streets of Chicago last week, aka interacted like I got out of its way and then it got out of my way and I got out of its way, and it was cute. We had a little dance. So like how many industries are doing that, right? I think there are some, and you could say restaurants are kind of maybe in that early adopter phase for those things, but at scale, it's going to take a long time before restaurants start delivering via drones or drone robots at scale, right? And so, look, I'm always fundamentally optimistic about the way that this industry changes over time to be better for guests and better to keep these businesses alive. I mean, I went from being a restaurant operator. I worked for an incredible, operating group in New York under USHG, under Danny Meyer. And I went from there into restaurant technology because even my restaurant, which was super successful, Tabla, it eventually closed. Even Danny closed the restaurant 12 years in. Everyone would say 12 years, a 12-year run of a restaurant, pretty good. But, were we like massively profitable during that? No, it was hard. It was a hard 12 years. And I think the evolution, that this industry goes through is all about trying to make a dollar, but not with the primary purpose. Let me just be clear about that. The primary purpose is to make people happy, and restaurants do all of these things to make people happy, and then they become unaffordable. Right? We throw a ton of staff at it. Well, minimum wage is going to go through the roof. We give people better value on the plate. Well, protein's going to go through the roof, or vegetables are going to go through the roof. We want to serve people in their homes. Well, there's now a 30% VIG from every, company that does that. And the world just constantly throws pressure onto how restaurants operate. And so they're forced to evolve and think about things like kiosks taking part of the ordering, or robots doing part of the cooking, or robots doing part of, or self-driving taxis doing part of the delivery. So I just think there's general optimism as long as we have all these great people, including folks like us, frankly, that are trying to build things and make guests happy. There's this like beautiful symbiosis between restaurants and technology companies. We try to push too far, they bring us back. We try to push too far, they bring us back. It works.
What was your first foray into the technology world?
In tech in general was being an operator.
As far as you were an operator, right? When did you make the pivot into technology?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Yeah. A legendary restaurant tech company that probably people don't know much about today, called Averro. I was running the dining room floor at Tabla. I told the GM of the restaurant, Terry Coughlin, my mentor at the time, great guy. I told him and Chef Floyd that I was planning on leaving in like 3 months. I was like, at the end of the summer, like I'm going to go do something else. I didn't know if I was going to stay in restaurants or whatever, but just like I was there for 2 years. It was a lot. This is when it was, I don't know if it was mandatory. I don't want to say that. I don't want to like make it seem that way, but we work 6 or 7, like I think we work 67s or 56s. Like we work 6 days a week. That was like normal, 12-hour days was normal. And I'm not trying to push hustle culture. Okay. But I'm just saying how it was. And I was just like, I want to move on to something else and learn something else.
That was old school restaurant management. Like you're on call 24/7. There's a fire. You're running into the restaurant. That's how you came up.
That's the way. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's right, but that's how we did it. Long story short, I was like, I'm leaving. The CEO of Averro was in the dining room, and Terry had said to me, "You got to go talk to this guy. Like maybe you could do something interesting together." And I was like, "I don't want to work for some POS bullshit." Can I curse here? Maybe I can curse. I don't know. That was my attitude back then. I didn't want to. I enjoyed using technology in the restaurants as an operator, but I was like, that's not my thing. I'm not going to go work for a POS company. I'm going to go be the sommelier at Waverly Inn, which was a job that I had as an opportunity.
You're not a classically trained som, are you?
I am not full like master of som stuff, but yeah, I mean, I'm a wine dork and love all that. So anyway,
one of our investors is, and I got to tell you, one of the coolest experiences was he made us dinner one day and like brought over the wine, and then like would be like, smell the vanilla, then smell the wine, and like you'd like it was amazing. Like you could like actually get it. Such a cool job.
It's fun. This is why I bring big bottles of wine to all the conferences that we go to. So anyway, Terry said, go talk to Damien. I spoke to Damien. He said, come in for an interview. The next day he gave me a job offer for, I think it was 2 times my salary at Tabla. I think he thought I made a lot more than I did at the restaurant.
And you're like, I got to work 7 days a week, 18 hours a day.
He was like 9 to 5. We take an hour and a half lunch, and it was great. It was a really nice offboarding. I've had the experience of helping other friends who have made the choice to, let's say, leave operations and get into technology or other things. I've had the pleasure of being able to help them do that as well. And it's funny, the conversation goes the same way every time, where that first day is weird. You're like, where's family meal? How do I set up my email? What's an away message? Like, it's all these things that you don't learn because you're a restaurant person. And of course, I've learned them now and whatever, but I'm very grateful to having had Averro as a landing place. Averro, just so people don't know, is like an analytics, a business intelligence tool that sat on top of the POS system.
Food costs, right?
Well, food costs now, I think that's a little bit of it, but like, back in the day, Averro just took all the data from the point of sale and analyzed it and gave it back to restaurants in a tool that they could use to understand how they're doing, because nobody had reporting. Micros, Aloha, back then, there was no Toast. Toast was towards the end of that reign. And so we worked with some of the biggest hotels and casinos in the country and the world.
You start out in restaurants. Do you kind of always view yourself as a restaurant person because those were your formative years?
I worked in restaurants since I'm 14 years old. My first job was the minute I got my working papers. I bussed tables at a restaurant called Skinflint's on 79th and 5th Avenue in Bay Ridge. It still serves a great burger. I don't know if it's great. Like, I'm not putting it on the pantheon of burgers, but like, to me, it's like, like an old school mac and cheese. Like, it's the best. And so busboy to barback to server to, to working in restaurants in college, serving, bussing tables, bartending, doing all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, I'm a restaurant guy. I think I'm better suited helping restaurants learn how to use technology so they can continue to run.
I keep wondering if I'm going to lose the feeling that I'm a restaurant person, because like I still very much view myself as a restaurant person that's kind of posing in the technology side. It's nice to know that may never go away.
Given how hard it is to run restaurants, and like it truly is hard, right? Especially if you run restaurants on the full service side. I think that's the case for QSR too, but like I think it's much harder when you're dealing with larger staffs and larger price points and everything like that. Given that it's so hard, I joke that I want to be successful in the technology side of things, so much so that I can open a restaurant and not care about losing money. I want to buy the restaurant across the street from my house and run it and have my kids bussing tables. And if we lose a couple $1,000 a year, fine. Who cares?
I keep bringing this up, and it's going to happen at some point. I want Jason Berkowitz to do this. Open up a restaurant and go to all the tech vendors, and they will be your investors. Like, I'll put in $15,000 or $20,000, and like, we're going to shoot some demo videos in there. We're going to have a little piece of it. We'll be the easiest investors ever, and everyone will literally just give you whatever software you want built for you. It would be the greatest coming together of an industry.
Interesting. I sometimes think the other way. Like, I'm going to go. There's going to be no reservations. There's going to be like, you write things down on a piece of paper, hand it to the chef. Like, go totally old school.
I live in the world of narratives. Just imagine the narrative of like the video walkthrough where you come in and Brandon's standing next to the kiosks, right? And then you've got all these different restaurant tech people. They're all in the restaurant, like with their things, walking people through how to use it. Like, that would just be, I don't know, clickbait.
That would be clickbait and terrible for guests.
Oh, it'd be awful. You know what the best part would be? Would be the restaurateurs that would come on day one just to criticize how poorly the tech vendors are doing at running the restaurant.
Look, this is a thing. If technology for your restaurant isn't seamlessly integrated, it interferes. Like, that's like a real answer. It just interferes with the guest experience. And by the way, I'm a true believer in it. I had to book a restaurant in town for something. Anyway, they were like, I only take reservations by a phone. And I was like, I don't have time. It was 11:30 at night, and I didn't have time to call, they weren't going to pick up then. And it's like, that stinks. Like, I need to do this now. And then I needed to change that reservation because we had another person join. So I had to call them again. That's a pain in the ass. So guess what? Online reservations, where I worked at Resi and OpenTable and all these great companies, that's really great and convenient, And
yet my guess is you spent a lot of time trying to convince restaurants that it would be better for their hospitality and experience to allow guests to book online.
Not even just book online. You can replace book online with used technology. I think the calling that I have is I help restaurants to understand that they shouldn't be afraid, and technology can actually enhance the experiences that they have. And every company that I've worked at, it truly been the case that is the thread. So at Averro, by looking and analyzing your service scorecards for each server, you can figure out which servers are great and which ones aren't. I will tell you, I can still pull the data on any of these, and I would be able to tell you who doesn't say, would you like to have dessert, or like offer dessert menus, right? Because you'll see that their dessert statistics are like, I don't know, three standard deviations away from the mean. At Resi, booking reservations and making that a cool and easy experience was really important. And at the time, OpenTable was just behind on the way that they were doing it. I think they've since caught up. Good for them, And then at Byte, same thing. Like, it's an antiquated idea that I need to have somebody sit there and hear me tell them what I want in my burrito. Yeah.
Go back to your restaurant. What are you opening? What is the restaurant that you open in your retirement?
I would think that changes weekly. It would be so hard to define that right now. It definitely wouldn't be a Michelin place. It would be a place that feels like a family run restaurant. Probably in the vein of Mediterranean, if that means Italian or Spanish or I don't know, like Southern French. I don't know, something like that. But it would just feel like a big warm hug.
Yeah. I always liked the wine store with like the little deli attached where you can sell the retail. You've got wine there to kind of offset things. But then, one little kitchen, you're cooking up whatever it is today, like limited menu. This is what's on the menu today.
Yeah, exactly. Chalkboard menu that you bring around. Look, I have been fortunate enough to have a ton of incredible meals, and the ones that feel the best are sometimes the simplest of places, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. So you're a guy who has really figured out the guest interaction. You go through, online ordering reservations, you go to kiosks, right? What is that next generation? What is the thing that you want to do, but the industry's not ready for? What's the future of ordering, that experience?
The world would be surprised about how many people would be willing to share things about themselves to restaurants so that they could be served better. I want to give you a retail example. For those of you that don't know or are watching this YouTube or whatever it is, I'm 6'6". I'm a large human being. I walk into a normal retail store to buy a t-shirt or let's say buy sneakers. The first thing is, what do you have in size 14? Don't show me the pretty thing. I don't care, because you got to start with what do you have in the store. Of course I can buy them online or whatever, but like if I'm somebody who's gluten-free, don't show me the full menu. Show me the things that are gluten-free on your menu. If I'm in a phase of life where I'm eating protein and vegetables, or if I really want pasta, there are reasons and there are benefits that a guest would have if they were to share certain things with restaurants that they would get, because restaurants would take that information and make great hospitality decisions out of it. And I wish that every person walking into a restaurant, the tech that's being used could identify that person and identify those things. And it would just make for such a better experience for people. And this is a very hard problem to solve. Well, what's going to be the centralized database that tells you who Matt is and what he wants this week, and you have to keep it updated and stuff. But as we've seen in the past 6 months, the pace of AI is such that these are solvable. These kind of hard problems become really solvable. So I really love this idea that there will be some registry that says to you, you know who I am and this is what I get. By the way, not to belabor the point, but if you use Gmail for your personal email, you're kind of doing this on the internet. The whole internet knows so much about you, and therefore the ads you see are more personalized, and the answers you get on Google are more personalized and so forth. So some people may think, I don't know if people would think that that's a bad thing. I love it. I would love to never see another, I don't know, an ad that doesn't fit what I need. Again,
there's a famous case with Target where some dad got really upset because Target sent a bunch of, baby stuff or maternity stuff to his daughter. And he's like, she's only 16. Why would you ever send this? Turned out the daughter was pregnant and must have been Googling a bunch of things about pregnancy, and Target had picked up on it.
Yeah.
That exists today.
Yeah.
You would think that that's far more complicated than what are my ordering patterns? Like, what am I doing today?
Yeah. Or even in a full service restaurant, why are you going to dinner? Like, this was a question we started asking guests via Resi before they would come to the restaurant. What's the occasion? There's this different way that I'm going to handle a business dinner as a restaurateur, than I'm going to handle a celebration, that I'm going to handle a birthday, that I'm going to handle a date, that I'm going to handle a first date versus a 100th date.
I want to go back to the unified data platform. I actually saw it kind of coming out in a very different way. I kind of viewed it as, I'm probably going to have my own AI agent that knows what my preferences are. I'm on this diet this week, curate my experience with the world, where instead of me sharing all of my information with everybody and everyone has these unified databases, I actually have it somewhat compartmentalized, right? Where it just shares the information I need about the individual. What are your thoughts on that? You think that's kind of the architecture that I would think would work best for sure. Look, you need something to be the clearinghouse. You need something to be the thing that Toast and OpenTable and Resi and Byte can all tap into, so that when in the appropriate moment, I can see what Matt wants. And now also, how do you identify Matt?
Are we going to move into a world of biometrics? Like, look, phone number, fine. I don't know if that's the best way to identify people when they are entering a place. I want something that doesn't make me have to do anything, right? I want you to recognize my face, recognize, my thumbprint, recognize my phone. I don't know, something like that. Let me tap in as a way. There's all this stuff that could happen. Let's do a little
thought experiment. So do you think, yes or no, we'll have AI agents that are representing us in the digital world anytime soon?
Well, I was going to say
5 years.
I was going to say
5, 10 years.
5 years, no. 10 years, yes.
Okay. So if that's the case, who is going to be that layer that is doing the clearinghouse, if you will? Is it the POS? Is it online ordering?
I don't think the company exists yet. I would probably lend myself to think that the company doesn't exist yet. There's something. It feels like there's something that's going to be bubbling up and starting to take over the large social media companies as the predominant kind of like way that we go online. If you look at the decline in search, okay, on the existing platforms, but the increase in search on all the LLMs, you can clearly see that there's a platform switch happening. Now, I don't think the one text box that sits on ChatGPT or Gemini is the best version of this yet. And I think to your point of saying like an agent there would be some agent that represents me. Like, we haven't figured out what that platform is. I think if this was 10 years ago and I had the same, let's say, end goal, I would say something like a Facebook, because Facebook or Google basically know everybody on earth. Right. But now it feels like the platform that we would do this on doesn't exist. And it might, by the way, Facebook's making incredible investments in AI. Google already has, and it's incredible, but I don't know. I don't know if it exists yet. I don't know if it comes from this industry. Like, I don't think it's a piece of restaurant technology as much as it's something that helps me when I'm trying to find size 14s in a store, as well as cacio e pepe.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the ordering. So like you talked about, why did you come to dinner tonight? Do people decide what they want and from where before they even go? And like when I'm ordering on a kiosk, I already kind of know what I want. Or do most people, are they influenced heavily by what you show them?
I think both are true. I think all of those things are true. Like, some people know what they want, some people don't, right? Yeah, look, if you're a first-time guest, maybe you're coming because you saw a TikTok about something. Maybe you're coming just because it was the most convenient restaurant to you. I definitely think people are influenced by what we show them. It'd be like you'd be going against the entire advertising industry for all time if that wasn't the case. Right.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing from the customer's perspective? Like, I know from the restaurant perspective, if I can upsell a drink, like, it's good for my bottom line. Am I trading anything away as the restaurant? Like, I think of the leaving a tip. It always drives me insane. Like, here's your coffee, go fill it up. Would you like to leave us a tip? Like, no. And I feel, upset that you even asked.
Yeah. Look, first principles of hospitality. I mean, there is a point in which asking people to enhance their experience becomes uncomfortable, right? If
peer pressure.
It's upselling. It's like, but there's a way that you do this in which you offer options, and there's a way that you do this in which let's go back to being a sommelier. You asked me for a great bottle of red. Do I point to a bottle that is in the top 25% of cost on the menu? No. I would say, here are 3 great options for you. And by the way, there's a technique to do this. You say the lowest option first, you say the highest option next, and you say the middle option third. And oftentimes people will go with the middle option. So is there manipulation there? I don't know. There's certainly some psychology behind framing the price, right, of a low and a high. But it's not likely that the lowest priced bottle of wine on a wine list is going to give you the most value enjoyment, right? Just by like, there is something that's $5 more that can give you twice, or $10 more that's like, give you more enjoyment out of it. So my point is simply, there's a way to do this. There's a way to show people options that allows for their choice and giving them the freedom to do what they want rather than trying to force something on people.
Talk about AI in restaurants. Me and my wife were at dinner last week, and they brought over the wine list, and I wanted to get some wine, so I literally took a picture of it, uploaded it to Perplexity, and said, like, I want one of these white wines. What's the best value here? And it literally pulled up all of the retail prices for them, and like gave me the whole analysis. And I chose the one it recommended. It was fantastic.
I have not thought of that use case. I Perplexity for me is up, in my brain for wine, at least.
See, I'm the guy that asks about the cheese dip and, hey, do I get a value in, ordering the bigger one, or should I get 2 of the small ones? I'm that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. My latest pet peeve with that has been pizza with the kids. Just if you know how to do the formula for area of a circle, there is no reason you should ever order anything but the largest possible pizza. It's if the difference between like a 10-inch and a 12-inch is like, I think it's above 40%.
Yeah, it's insane. All right. So going back to restaurant technology.
Yes.
You've been around doing this forever.
Yes.
Give me kind of the state of restaurant technology. Are we still a really fractured, siloed, industry? Are we going to become that one size fits all, or is this industry so unique based on each different restaurant that we're always going to have this kind of fractured technology stack?
I think that there will be more restaurant technology companies in 5 years from now than there are today. I think same thing in 2 years from now than there are today. There will be more little niche companies that do little things. I mean, if you said to me 4 or 5 years ago that there was going to be like an all-in-one SMB ordering platform, blah, 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 online, marketing tool and everything that could take over and be $1 billion company, I'd say, no way, there's no space for it. And then owner.com comes around and like absolutely crushes. And they're continuing to crush. I didn't think that there was space for that in the business. So
why do you think they're going to be more in the next 5 years? I would have actually thought like the pendulum swung really hard to there's tons of restaurant technology companies, and that it would kind of swing back to consolidation and fewer of them.
No. So I think if you were saying individual categories, like will there be as many loyalty platforms in 5 years? Well, that's such a broad category. I think there will be more. The costs of creating software is going down, especially with AI. And so the entry, the cost to enter a market is lower. It's funny, like over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of niche delivery companies that have like propped themselves up and maybe like, I don't know, I'm making up a place, but you're the online ordering and delivery, third-party online ordering delivery company for Raleigh, North Carolina, right? And all of a sudden this thing pops up and starts to take business from Uber Eats and DoorDash. And like one of them has to come in and buy it for $5 million. And it means nothing to them. And it means everything to the people that just started that company. So I think the cost of building software is going down. So there will be more of it. And there's also so many more categories. You mentioned like AI is opening up a whole ton of categories that didn't exist 5 years ago. In a big way, like voice AI, of course. I was talking about robotics. Dude, robotics is going to be everything. There's going to be people that are cooking robots that are cooking every part of the meal at some point in the future. I'm not going to sit here and predict it's going to be tomorrow, but at some point it's going to be everywhere. And so is there a company that focuses on like fry cooks and a company that focuses on grow cooks, like the software that goes into that? Maybe, yes, no, I don't know.
So have you played around with vibe coding, Cursor, or any of these tools?
A little bit. I mean, I wish I had more time to. Let me say that.
The most shocking takeaway I had from the National Restaurant Association show this year was talking to a couple CTOs, that were actively building things for their brand and putting it in place. Do you think restaurants start developing their own software, or are they in the hospitality industry and have no business trying to build technology and, it's not their core competency?
Yeah. Look, I think the proper analogy is to look at food in a kitchen. Okay. There are things that are core to your menu that you need to do in-house. If you're a steak restaurant, you're probably buying large enough pieces of meat that you're actually breaking some things down in-house. You might not be buying a whole, eighth or a quarter of a cow, but you're buying the whole rib, and then you're cutting your own ribeyes. Okay. That'd probably be pretty standard if that was like core to what you do. At the same time, the steak sauce that you use, you're probably buying that. Are you churning your own butter? Nope. Are you producing your own salt? No. Are you like growing, the onions in the backyard? No. Okay. And so when there are things that are really core to somebody's, let's say, a restaurant brand's ethos, like I think it's important that they might actually take that on themselves. And then but in between taking it on yourself and just totally buying it off the shelf, there's a ton of space. If you think about Shake Shack's meat blend, the blend of their meat is like vital to their burger, of course. And so they worked with Pat LaFrida on a certain blend. And then they asked Pat LaFrida to be able to distribute it nationwide. When they went to the Middle East, they had to work with a totally different producer because Pat LaFrida wasn't going to be able to produce beef in the Middle East. They had to work with a totally different producer. So like that was super vital to the core of what they do. But at the same time, they didn't have to reinvent the wheel. Meanwhile, the bun that they used, at least in the beginning, was like a Martin's potato bun, right? And that's off the shelf. And they said, this product is great. This is exactly what we want it to be. It tastes exactly what we want. We don't need to change this. Let's go get a great deal with Martin's who does it. I think that they've changed that since. So I don't want to speak for like what's on the Shack burger today, but like initially that's what it was. And so I don't know. I think that's a great analogy for certain pieces of tech that you need to develop with, and certain pieces of tech that you might build on your own, and other things that you might buy off the shelf.
Do you think coming from restaurants as a background has made you develop better technology? Like, do ex-restaurant people make better technology for restaurants or no?
100%. There's not even a question about that. In fact, it's a huge, I write about this sometimes on LinkedIn, the idea that if you are a buyer of technology, you should seek out or even ask the question, from the company that you're buying from, does your leadership have restaurant experience? And I will tell you, moreover than creating great tech, when done, it's not a guarantee. But I think if you like the tech, I think what it does say is that there's going to be somebody who cares about this business and who cares about this industry. I have seen over the 20 some odd years that I've been involved, I've seen companies come in, swoop in with non-tech people, take the bag, fool people into buying a product and then bounce, and then they're out, right? And all of a sudden, that product doesn't work anymore. It was like the promises weren't kept. There have been other companies who have done things that are frankly very antithetical to restaurants and turned from good company to evil company. And I don't think if you have a 25-year reputation in the business that you can afford to do that. People like myself, people like, Josh over at Me's, things, plenty of us who have been, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder with other folks in the business. And like my point, if my point was to make the most money, I wouldn't be doing this.
All right. I'm curious about kind of the relationship, let's put it this way, between technology and restaurants. So it feels like Averro is probably a really good example. Averro still exists today, and we run into people that are using Averro. It looks about the same as I'm sure it looked when you were there, right? I look at, Jimmy John's back of house software. Like, it looks the same as it did 20 years ago. I feel like this next generation, or the last 10 years, all these companies, it's, taking them along on the journey. It's always improving. You're not buying it at a stagnant. It's not like I'm buying Windows 95. I'm buying Gmail, right? That is improving every month. You're curating my guest experience, right? The right buttons. And it's not going to change, or it's going to change every year, right? Every 6 months.
And there has to be a certain amount of trust. There was actually something I was going to say earlier when you were saying, like, we know exactly the right way to do a pop-up. And I was going to say, yeah, we do for today. But UX changes, like guest behavior changes, right? And so it's why, one company can't do every piece of technology in the restaurant, is because there needs to be improvement. Like, you need to be on this journey. If the product that you're working with isn't on a journey to be like endlessly improving, then it might not be the best product for your future. And if your tech vendors aren't coming to you and having conversations about like, hey, what are the, I one thing I say to almost every in every customer meeting that we have is, I want you to ask your teams, what can we do in the kiosk, or what is missing in the kiosk that would happen in real life? Let me put it that way. And so, one of the things that we're building right now is this whole engine on essentially like something for nothing. This is what we used to call it in the restaurants, SFN. Something for nothing. It's just like the idea that if you came into my restaurant and you ordered you and your wife ordered 2 burgers and 2 glasses of wine, and I said, you know what, we also brought fries for you. I hope you have a great lunch, right? And it just, what did that fries cost? $2, and it made your day. You're going to talk about that forever. I remember I used to go to a specific, I won't say the brand, but a specific coffee shop. I used to go there, I don't know, 4 times a week. It was between my train and my office when I was at Resi. And well, I'll finish that story fine. I'll give my daughter one, my daughter the other one. Anyway, I used to go there, and at one point I just ordered a coffee, and they said, "Here, it's on us, right? Here, take your cup. You can go fill it up yourself. It's on us." The same exact thing happened the other day. I actually brought my daughter to Kava. She loves her lemonade, and we just walked up to the front. There was a big line, and I said, all we need to do is order a lemonade. We don't need to order food. So can we order it here? She's like, "Here's a cup. Enjoy." I mean, those little things, that's hospitality. And so does the computer ever do that? Well, it will. And so we will be able to say, we're not going to be able to know that it's just me and a daughter ordering a lemonade, but we can put some parameters in there that says, once in a while, buy somebody lunch. How dope is that? How dope is that?
Walk me through the AI algorithm behind the scenes. I know you guys are working in that space. Like, what are you doing with AI today?
I will be vague about it, because obviously this is like core.
No, get specific. I want you to share all of your corporate trade secrets.
Exactly.
It makes for a great show.
This is core to what we do. What I can say is that the larger the data set that you have, the more you can really extract from it. I think that everyone thinks like just the idea of, let's say, what was ordered. Well, what else was clicked on that wasn't ordered? What path? Again, this is why I say e-commerce. If this was an Amazon executive abandoned talking cart. About it, well, abandoned cart, abandoned page, bounce page, like what should be at the top left of your menu versus the top right? I remember when I was at Cornell 27 years ago, and we were trying to figure out on the top left of the menu that you open up should be your appetizers, but on the top right, it should be your like most, I don't know, cost effective or profit driven entree, same.
Gosh, I'm just thinking about A/B testing photos. I mean, are you guys doing that kind of stuff? I'll do cheesecake in 2 different ways.
Yeah,
Which one gets ordered more?
Look, there's a point at which this stuff is overkill. But yeah, we work with brands to understand how to make the experience the best possible. And it's not always about the most profitable, and it's not always about, it's like what makes the guest happiest? What makes them want to come back?
Gosh, so that's fascinating. I hadn't really thought about it that way. When I walk up to order from, somebody at the register, I'm thinking all kinds of thoughts.
And we don't know. We have no idea what you're thinking.
Maybe I talk with the person about it, but they're not capturing that data.
No.
Now, all of a sudden, you literally have the same as me on a website, how I'm interacting and thinking.
That's right.
I mean, did you guys like bring in like e-commerce people to like look at those workflows and like, how do you figure that out?
Yeah. I mean, it's a journey. I think we have some great people on our team that do that. You know, e-commerce is not the perfect answer here because, as I said before, either you're ordering with your thumbs or you're ordering with a mouse or like a trackpad, and ordering with your pointer finger is a totally different experience. And so I think the concepts of e-commerce make sense, but we look at things a lot differently here. And some of the greatest conversations that I've had about kiosk over time have not been with e-commerce people, but with brands themselves who have developed kiosk. And so, when I want to go talk to people about like, what are you thinking about what's next? It's like I can talk to these great operators who spend all of their time thinking about kiosks like I do, right?
So I want to double click into that and what they're saying. But before, what have you learned about how people order?
I mean, what's an insight? We know that. I think a very simple one that's probably pretty generic is like the things that you think go with each other. And if you make it easy and convenient for them to be ordered simultaneously, that will increase the likelihood that they're ordered simultaneously. I mean, when somebody's checking out and doesn't have a drink, it's a mistake. They forgot to get a drink. Like, it's not exactly rocket science. People order hot things on cold days and cold things on hot days. But it becomes pretty complex when you're trying to do that for hundreds of thousands of orders a day and in hundreds of brands and thousands of locations. Like, that's what's hard.
It makes sense. You want the unified database. That would be very valuable.
Well, I want the guest to be able to identify themselves the minute they walk in. Is there like legal barrier to that today? I'm sure that there is, but this is the thing is like, if there was a clearinghouse that said you, Matt, signed up to let people know that you're gluten-free. I don't know if you're gluten-free, but whatever. That would be fine.
A sandwich shop operator. I'm very much into gluten still.
Yeah. But that would clear any legal barriers. Like the guest is saying, know this stuff about me, please.
Yeah. All right. Walk me through what are the best and brightest that are thinking about kiosks from the restaurant standpoint? What do those conversations look like?
Everything from kiosk placement to signage. The conversations that we often have. There's conversations about software, but this is where the operator side comes in. It's about the change management for your team on understanding what do I say now? Hi, how can I help you? Somebody has said 1,000 times. And now you might have to say something different because you're not asking them to come to you to be helped. You're asking them to get their order started on the kiosk, And so it certainly changes the questions.
Yeah, you go from a checkout person to the Walmart greeter.
Yeah. Yeah, so something like that. But it alters the hospitality, and it should. The same way that, now that we use handhelds, or let's say just Europe, which always used handhelds to kind of come over and have the check paid at the table, it changes what you say. Like, you don't say, let me know when you're ready and I'll take your credit, whatever. You're just like, here, just take your time.
All right. When you look at, you're a guy who's been around, you've gone through all these restaurant technology companies. I'm kind of curious. If you were to give the advice to a restaurant, right, that's trying to weigh my 3 loyalty companies, or, there's all these different verticals, right? But how do you pick out who's going to be a winner? Because you want to find the right partners. Resi was obviously a great company. Averro's still around. Byte, good company, guys still around, like you're growing. But how do you cut through the noise and figure out who's going to be a good partner?
How did Byte figure it out, or as an operator?
how does an operator, I mean, you've watched companies come and go. What are like the red flags?
Look, I think you have to ask this question is like, what is the leadership? Is the leadership from this business? Do they care about this business? That's number one. Because if they do, if they know the industry, they're going to care about guests and they're going to care about the way that they're perceived and their reputation thereafter. Okay. Right. And so you're not just going to have these, bad business practices. The customer support's always going to be there. They're going to understand that, a question for guests needs to be answered immediately, not just in 3 days from some ticket that's opened for 3 days from now. That's one. Two, this is a trick I had mentioned at the Olo Partner Summit last year. Ask other companies who integrate to that company what they think about their integration and their tech. Very simple. My CTO knows based on the API and the documentation, knows a lot about the hygiene of other companies. And that hygiene tells you a lot about their likelihood of success going forward and all those things. So I think that's a hack. I think you got to ask, and don't ask salespeople any of this. Ask product people. Tell me about integrating to this. Was it, how was their documentation? Oh, did they answer questions to, like, that's a hack.
Yeah. We always try and get the salespeople out of the way as quickly as possible and say like, hey, we have our ops team. We'd like our ops team to talk to your ops team. Like, cut out all the middleman. Like, the sooner you can get to a real conversation about how it's going to work, like, the better it goes. All right. Some kind of quick speed round questions for you.
Cool.
What brand do you look at that you think has the best, and I'm not talking like individual restaurants, right? The best curated customer experience?
Does this? I'm going to go total opposite. I'm going to go Blue Hill at Stone Barns. I'm going to go full service.
Favorite wine?
Oof, Domaine Romanée-Conti Latache. I don't know. In the 80s.
Wow, that sounds expensive.
It's very expensive.
Which of the large language models, the ChatGPT, Claude, what do you go to? What do you use?
I use ChatGPT most.
Which of them do you think is going to be the winner when it comes to, AI?
All of them. I think they're all going to do different things better than others do other things.
One piece of advice for restaurant technology companies. Not that there's an early stage one here listening to you.
Listen to your customers. Go talk to them. Have the leadership, and everybody in your company should be talking to as many of your customers as possible. They're going to tell you exactly what they want, need, and will buy.
And last but not least, what's the future for Byte?
Up, up, up. We want to make sure every single guest that uses a kiosk has an incredible hospitality experience and comes back. So our mission is to elevate hospitality everywhere. So
if someone wants to find you or thinks they're a fit, how do they get in touch?
You can Brandon at getbyte.com. You can hit me on LinkedIn too.
That's a bold statement, giving out your email address.
That's fine. Hit me up. If
Zoom Info probably has it by now anyways.
Whatever. Well, it's on my cell.
Thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you, Matt. Awesome to be here. I appreciate you, brother.